Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om. We'll continue Katha Upanishad. This is adHyAya 2, first vallI. This is more of an extension of what we learned so far. And you'll see many parallels between second adHyAya and Bhagavad Gita. First shloka, first vallI, first shloka. Paranchi khani vyatruna swayambhu stat smat paran pashyati nantaratman kishad dhirah pratyagatma nameksha davrutta chakshuramrutatva michan. The self-existent one, Brahman, created the senses with outward-facing tendencies, and therefore man perceived the external and not the internal self. But there are those wise indeed who, having seen the self within, turn their eyes away from outward objects, wishing for immortality. Now, briefly, this is talking about Tanmatra. So, Tanmatras created those tendencies, bhava, and bhava created indriyas, the senses, that is outward. So, there is light, and we wanted to see the light. So, that created eyes or ability to see. Similarly, there are other senses. So, all these senses are outward in nature because the Brahman wanted to experience, and that experience, that desire to experience, turned into senses, and those senses are outward. But person who turns inward, one who has known the self, or one who has done that experience of Atma Sakshatkar, can become immortal. Again, the immortality is not free from death, but it's free from the fear or free from the effect of the state, whatever it may be, life, death. Second shloka. Parachah kama nanuyanti balaste mrutyoryanti vitatasya pasham atha dhira amrutatvam viditva dhruvama dhruveshviha na prarthayante. The immature run after external objects of desire and hence get trapped into the bondage of all pervasive death. But the wise, knowing unchanging immortality, do not pray for transient things. Again, doing the Atma Sakshatkar is what the key to unlock the immortality. So, once we know the self, which is eternal, which is part of Paramatma, Parabrahma, then we are free from the fear of death. But majority of the people, majority of the beings, even small animals, they all are driven by four basic purusharthas. And because of those, there is life or fear of death. Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdan sparshanshri maithunan ete naiva vi janati kimatra parishishyate etadvaitat. That by which forms, smell, sound, touch and pleasure, all these are known to that self, what can remain unknown? This indeed is that. So all these different senses are again experience of Atma, Atman. And whether we experience that, we feel that there is somebody else, there is something else that is experiencing it, we are not aware of that. Similar to how we sleep. When we are in sleep, there are activities going on in the body, but we are not aware. Our mind is kind of put into suspended state. So in that state, even though things are going on in our body, we do not feel. Maybe our ears can hear the sound, but that sound is not interpreted by mind. Maybe if there is continuous sound, eventually the mind will act. Similarly, if there is bright light, if we are sleeping, we won't see it. But if it is continuously put on our face, eventually we'll wake up. So, similarly, all these experiences are by Atma, but we do not feel that we have Atma, even though the experience is going beyond our mind, because mind is just the interpreter or the storage. But there is something beyond the mind, and that has to experience what it is. So that who sees that, who experiences that, is Atma. Swapnantam jagaritantam chobhau yena nupashyati mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhiro na shochati. That by which the states of the dreaming or waking both arise, knowing that great, all-pervading self, the wise one grieves no more. Again, this is what we were talking about, that swapna or sushupti, those two states, sleep basically, that our mind is active, but we still do not feel what is happening around us. And so that wise do not grieve much, because in Gita, at one place it is said that yogi is who sleeps when others are awake, and he is awake when others are sleeping. It does not mean literally in the sleep, but it is more of a awareness. When we take shower, we just take it mechanically. We do not feel that we are taking shower. It just happens. Maybe when we were very small, we used to do that with awareness. But when we grew, that became our habit, and that becomes like a automatic auto mode action. In that, the mind, even though it controls all the actions, and we respond to, say, if water is hot, then we respond. If water is cold, then we respond. But it's still mechanical, automatic action, because it became our habit. But if we become aware of what is happening when that water touches our body, and we feel that its temperature, its wetness, and how it affects our skin, if we try to feel that, that means we are taking bath with awareness. We are going beyond sushupti. See, mind, it can do multiple things at the same time. It is us. There is some entity beyond mind that decides where mind is going to focus. Meaning the mind is becoming aware of what is happening. Say we are on telephone, there is a lot of noise around us. We are kind of getting disturbed. But when we concentrate our mind on the speech that is happening on the telephone, then we don't hear other noises. So our mind has focused, became aware of certain things, and stopped being aware of some other things. So what Rishi is saying, the wise people, one who wants to do Atma Sakshatkar, does all the actions with awareness. And then he or she chooses whether the mind needs to be responding to certain things or not. Many a times we feel angry, but we can choose whether we want to be angry or we don't want to. Similarly, all the actions, when we become hungry, if there is food, then we are driven by our senses that, okay, now we need to eat. But if there is no food around, then our mind chooses to do something different, and that hunger subsides. It no longer feels that we are hungry. Similarly, thirst. Eventually the body will take over, the physical sense will take over, but up to a certain extent, mind will control all these senses. And if we control, or if we train our mind more, then the tolerance level or the acceptance level of, say, if take an example of hunger. Let's say if we are hungry for a couple of days, many people can survive 4-5 hours of hunger. Some people can survive hunger of 1 day or 2 days. They can live without eating anything. But if we train our mind, maybe we don't feel hungry for a week or so. Many yogis, they don't feel hunger for even a month or maybe a year. Maybe they have different means of getting their energy, because ultimately source of energy is sun. So how we take that energy in our body, that's what matters. For us, the easiest thing is to eat. That is the source of energy. But it does not mean we don't have ability to absorb energy, sun's energy, through other means. And many people can do that. So if we train our mind, the mind it becomes aware of certain things. And what we need to do is be aware of what is happening. Right now I am speaking, you are listening. Mind is doing interpretations, both of our minds. But are we doing it being aware, or are we doing it by just habit? So that's what we want to differentiate. And so we want to create that distance, small distance, between our thought and something beyond that. We don't know what is that beyond, but just try to watch thoughts. Just try to watch what is happening in the mind. That will create the distance. And that will make our mind aware of all the things happening around us. Ya imam madvandam veda atmanam jivamantikat ishanam bhuta bhavyasya na tato vijugupsate etadvaitat. Who knows this sweet tasting self, who is always near the soul, who is the Lord of the past and the future. He has nothing to hide from anyone. This indeed is that. These are various characteristics of knowing the self, the Atman. Atma knows past and future because it is eternal. It is only the body or the jiva that with Maya's cover gets birth and death. So Maya knows, not Maya, the Atma knows what is happening, because these are all the experiences. And that is, the word used here is etad vai tatat. So this is that. That meaning the Nachiketa Vidya, or to know Parbrahma. So if we understand what is happening with this, then we know this is Parbrahma, or this is ultimately the experiences of Parbrahma. Because when there was nothing before this universe, everything was avyakta. At that time, the Parbrahma or Brahma, it thought of having some experience, and because of that thought process, it divided into multiple. So it became multiple centered universe, and every center, which we call Atma, gets this experience. So ultimately the experience is of Parbrahma. If we look at our body, there are many cells throughout our body. So when we touch a hot item, let's say my finger is touching a hot item, then all the cells in the finger gets activated. They do some actions. That means the first experience happens at the cellular level, and those signals reach my mind through some other cells. That means all the cells that are involved in this whole process, they are the first hand observer. They are the first hand, like our souls, our Atma, that we are the first-hand entities that are experiencing or observing. But ultimately that experience is of whom? Parabrahma. It's not us, not even us. Even though we say that Atma is observing all this, getting through all these experiences, but we are just a tiny speck of that whole. And that whole is ultimately, this is Parabrahma's experience, not our experience. We are just a tool in that experience. We are just like a cell that are carrying that observation, that experience to the greater self.
So is it that the Atma is, through Atma, the Paramatma is experiencing it? Or
Yes.
Because in
Yes.
Gita it is like Atma is inert, nothing it cannot be wet, it cannot be dry, it cannot be hot, it cannot
Right.
be cold and all that. So that
Correct.
means that whatever is happening,
Right.
Atma is totally immune to that.
Right. It is immune, but it is observing what is happening, because this world exists because of that willingness to observe. We need to. This is exactly said in Yoga Vasishtha. Bhagavad Gita does not use these exact words, but it is hinting. In the 7th adHyAya, Sri Krishna is talking about avyakta and vyakta. Even 8th adHyaya, that there is something called akshara, which is not destroyed, which is eternal. But that eternal becomes vyakta, manifesting. Manifesting for what? That manifestation itself is a willingness to get that observation, get that experience. So Yoga Vasishtha, there was nothing before. But then that nothing, it's not in our sense to know Brahma, right? But we are just using these words, that there was nothing. That nothing somehow created this willingness to observe, to experience. And if we read Purana, Srimad Devi Bhagavad or Markandeya Purana, that willingness, that Ichha Shakti, which is Adi Shakti. And because of that Adi Shakti, Parabrahma united with, or Shiva united with Shakti to observe, to experience, and that's how this world came into existence. So even though it is inert, it's like saying lotus flower, right? Lotus flower, even though it grows in mud, it is not affected by mud. But without mud, lotus cannot exist. It has to be in the lotus, that mud, right? Without mud, if we take lotus out of mud, put it into clear water, it's not going to grow. It requires that mud because it wanted that experience. But is it being affected by mud? No. So similarly, Atma, even though it is inert, it's not getting affected by any of the senses or any of the things happening around it, but it is still an observer. And that observation, that experience is carried forward to Parabrahma, because ultimately it's Parabrahma's wish to get this experience. And Yoga Vasishtha says that we, this whole world and all of our actions, it's like dream. It compares with the dream. When at individual level we get dream in our sleep, during that dream, that whole world is true for us. Whatever is happening in that dream is kind of a new universe. And that new universe, whatever we feel, whatever we do, is true in those moments. Similarly, we are living in the dream of Parabrahma. Parabrahma thought of this dream. Parabrahma created this universe with just a thought process, right? So we are living in that dream, is what Yoga Vasishtha is saying. So in that sense, yes, even though it is not being touched, it is inert, it does not do anything, but its characteristic is ultimately to observe, to experience. And if we understand that we are just an instrument, ultimately we are part of Par-Brahma, and it's the Par-Brahma who wants to experience this. If we forget, then we are bound by Trigunatmik Maya. We cannot cross that. And again, Gnan, Karma, Kriya and Bhakti, easiest things all together to cross that boundary.
So on the one hand, Parabrahma has sort of created us to, of course through, Atma, the different centers
Right.
and all that, to experience.
Right.
But at the same time, the challenge for us is to detach from experience. Like
No,
to-
it does.
to
It does.
stop the reincarnation circle.
It doesn't say that. See, the clue is here. Our senses are outward, right? So when I see a good, beautiful scenery, I feel good. When the scenery is bad, I feel bad. We want to be detached from that feeling.
Right.
Even though there is experience, that experience just needs to be carried forward. That means even though we see a scene, it must not affect us. That means we are still seeing the scene. But our senses do not get attached to that process.
But you can still enjoy it.
You can enjoy everything, right? Enjoyment does not mean we are attached.
Okay.
See, attachment is what? I am doing certain things because I want to feel good. So that is attachment. But I am good even though the scene is there or not. It does not affect me. I am always joyful.
So if the scene is there and
Right.
you feel it does not affect, so the scene having that sense of beauty or something, you won't feel that because you're the same level.
Right. For me, it doesn't matter. I am always joyful. Why joyful and why not miserable? Because ultimately, see, we cannot be miserable for longer period, but we can be joyful for longer period. We all experience that, right? We can be joyful for very longer period. But let's say we are angry with someone. That anger eventually subsides. But when we are good, we feel good about something, then we keep experiencing that for very long period. That means our ability to be joyful is more. So that is our natural tendency. So if we stick to that, we feel that ultimately being joyful is what is our inert nature. Joyful does not mean being attached to the act of being joyful. That act may or may not be present, but we still are going to be joyful.
So I'm still not clear about whether, okay, you mentioned if you can feel happy based on something or sad based on something.
Right.
So you should not be affected by both.
Right.
But if we feel happy about something,
Right.
that is when we can experience it. That is when we can.
No, we experience both, right? Even if we are sad,
No,
we
yes,
experience
sure.
that.
Yeah, either way. If
Right.
If we feel something is when we experience.
Right.
Which is if we feel happy or we feel sad is when we experience. But how to carry forward that experience?
No, we don't have to carry forward. It is already being carried forward. If my finger cell decides that from today onwards, I will not feel hot or cold, is it going to happen? No. Because its nature, its characteristic, this is what it is meant for. It has to experience. Even though the cell willingly does that or not, it is going to experience. And it is going to carry forward that experience.
So then when we see a beautiful scene, what should be how should we be?
It's like watching movie, right? When there is a scene being played on the screen, many people get involved. Usually females are like that. They get easily involved into the sentimental scenes. So they feel emotional. They want to cry. And many people, they just not get affected. Exactly like that. The scene may or may not affect you. But if the scene is there or not, But if you are joyful in every state, that's what is required.
If your joyfulness increases by the scene, is that the wrong thing?
Because you are attached now. That more joy is created due to that sin.
Okay.
That means you expected something out of it, even though willingly or not willingly, but you are attached to that sin. That's why you feel more joy.
So then when we feel, so we should be the same, it should not have any effect on us.
It's like a stone, but are we stones? No. So our mind is going to play. So here's the thing. See, mind is always going to act according to the sin, because it is programmed for that. So mind is going to enjoy something. But if we make distance from that, see, when we feel good, we forget that we are feeling good. But if you bring that awareness that you are feeling good, that means you are detached from that awareness. I mean, you are being aware and you are detached from that act. That means it is not going to affect you. Similarly, when you get angry, if you detach yourself, put a distance that who is being angry, your mind is getting angry. If you get that awareness, that means you are done. See, if we look at a murti, right, that murti, even though it's very beautiful, is that murti going to be affected by things happening around it? No. Are we thinking of becoming like that? No. Because duty of my cell in the finger is to touch and experience and carry forward that experience. Similarly, my mind, it has to feel all these emotions, because that is how it is programmed. If our mind cannot think, if our mind cannot feel all this, then what is the difference between a donkey and human, right? So our mind is going to feel that, but we have capability to step away from what is being happening and look at it. That okay, my mind feels joy, my mind feels anger, my mind feels sadness. What is happening? I just need to be aware of that.
So you're detaching from that.
You are detaching from that, yes, exactly.
So in that sense, you're saying my mind is separate, I'm separate.
Yes.
This is happening to the mind.
Yes. Mind is playing. This is the act of mind, Chitta Shakti Vilas. A very well-known Sant, his name Swami Muktanand, he wrote this book, Chitta Shakti Vilas. And he is a yogi, more of a Kriya yogi. So he followed through the Hatha Yoga path and Raja Yoga, Dhyan and all that. So he mentioned all the various steps, what is happening to him. He wrote everything without mincing any word. He put, I think, the 90% of the experiences. 10% he said, I'm not allowed to write. So 90% he wrote. And everything is written in this book, Chitta Shakti Vilas. So what he is saying is, everything is a dance of Chitta Shakti or Chiti. Chiti is what the word he uses. So Chitta Shakti Vilas. What is happening? If we become aware of this Chitta Shakti Vilas, then we don't have to do anything else. And that is what we are meant to do. And that is eventually leads us to Atma Sakshatkar. He is mentioning various stages, what kind of color you see, what kind of experience you have around you. So those experiences creates this awareness in the mind, and eventually how that boundary is crossed and everything he has mentioned very beautifully.
So if it's tough, I guess, to split ourselves into one thing and
right.
the other observer.
Right.
But if I guess if we just say attachment means needing something, but if you okay, let's say there is a jamun and it's not, if you eat it, we enjoy it.
Exactly.
If you don't eat it also, if you won't crave for it.
Right.
So whether you eat it or not is, you are the same. But
right.
when you eat it, you feel the qualities of the jamun and you enjoy.
Right.
But that is not what we should do here. We should be like that. Yes, that sense of enjoyment you get when you eat,
Right.
regardless of whether you crave for it or not,
Correct.
attach to it or not, is
Right.
material. You should not feel that, or you should detach yourself and observe that your body is feeling it or something.
Let your mind feel that. Right? See, most of the times we forget that it's our mind who is experiencing that. We become one with our mind. And that is attachment. If you feel that, if you can see that your mind is getting joyful while eating that jamun, then you are detached from that act. So here, this is what even Bhagavad Gita is talking about, that we cannot live without doing karma. We cannot, simply. So what should we do? Do the karma, that is kartavya karma, that is natural, that is our tendency. Do all those karmas and just surrender everything, offer everything to Sri Krishna. That means you become aware of what is happening. See, we breathe in, breathe out, but we don't feel it. It just happens. That means if it happens just like that, that means that act is going to bind us. That act is attachment. But when we become aware of the breath going in, breath going out, so during those moments, we are detached from that act. Even though act is happening, even though mind is involved, but it is, even if we feel that it is the mind who is seeing it, but we are detached from it. Let mind act on it. Let mind do its job. Let it do monkey around. It's fine. But if we stop being aware of it is monkeying around, that is being one with the mind, and that is attachment.
So in the Gita, when it says like you should get to where you don't feel hot, heat and cold, everything is the same. So sthita prajna, that is.
Sthit prajna is not like being a stone. Body is going to do its job. Mind is going to do its job. Just we want to be aware of what is happening. Be jagrat in all the actions. Be jagrat. Be aware of what is happening. Take example of sleep. When you are in sleep, you see dream. We are not aware of that. We are watching a dream, right? The moment we become aware that, oh, that was a dream, at that moment we are detached from the dream. And similarly, this is what must be happening in our lives, in our jagrata avastha. You are listening, I am talking. But if I am aware of what I am being saying, how my words are being flowed outward, if I am aware of that process, that means I am detached from that act. You are listening what I am saying. But if you are one with that process, you are not detached. So when you become aware that you are listening something, and that process of listening might create some actions in your mind, right? Some reactions, not actions, reactions. That this is wrong, this is right, this is how it should be. So all these interpretations going on. If you become aware, that means you are detached from listening. So now, very easy thing to do. When you take bath, if you take bath with awareness, that is the start. But if you take bath, your shower, without being aware, it just falls and you just clean yourself. That means you are still attached. So it's a very simple process, very simple thing you can do.
So observe the experience.
Observe the experience, yes. Exactly. That means we are passing on the experience. The cell in my finger is doing its job. It is not being involved in interpreting that.
So this is not the same exactly as what all these other like Buddhist monks or anybody, they say mindfulness.
Mindfulness is again becoming aware. That's what they are talking about.
Okay, I thought they were saying whatever you're doing, get engrossed in that. But here,
No.
we are detaching from we are doing it, but we are
Being
catching
aware,
it.
right.
We are making ourselves split into two.
Right, we are just making a distance. Even Vipassana sadhana, as you talked about Buddhism, right? Vipassana is very much popular in that. So what is Vipassana? Watch your breath. That's the only thing you need to do. Watch your breath. Going in, going out, going in, going out. Keep watching. So ultimately, you will become detached. You become mindful of what is happening, is what they say. So mindful does not mean you are 100% involved in that breath. You are just watching breath going in, where it goes in your body, which part of lung it touches, what is happening after that, how you collect all your breath, bring it out. So you watch all that process. And many people, Nitin bhai, he is not present, but he is very much into that Vipassana sadhana. So I haven't asked him, but many sadhakas, they feel blood flowing, they feel heartbeats, they feel how the organs, internal organs, they are doing their job. They experience all that. That means they are detached from all that process. So it's very first step in Atma Sakshatkar. But after this experience, you come back to life and do all nasty things. That means you lost whatever you learned. So and that's why Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Abhyasa, keep doing, because it's very easy to lose. So keep doing.
So also when we observe that, okay, we are detaching ourselves, we say we are getting angry, so we observe that, okay,
right.
The mind is getting angry, so now the mind is doing this. So,
right.
But whoever that observer is should try to say it's okay to the mind, it's okay, calm down, don't get angry.
That means you are being involved. If you say calm down, that means you are being involved. Let it calm down. What makes it difference?
So who controls them?
That is Atma. So once you know that is Atma. Once you have that experience, that is Atma Sakshatkar.
Which experience?
You know what is happening. See, mind is doing its job, right? And mind is getting calm. That means it is driven by the chemical actions, right? We get angry because certain chemicals are activated in our mind. Very easily understandable through adrenaline rush. When we are in fear, we are ready to run or fight, right? All of our body parts, they get more blood, gush of blood. We feel sweaty, we feel strong, we feel like very agile. So all this happening because our mind sent some chemicals. But who is telling mind to do this? It is pre-programmed, right? The DNA, chromosomes, right? It is pre-programmed. Now, here comes the thing. Whether you are going to fight or flight, right? Your DNA decides, okay, I am preparing you. Your mind does its job, it's preparing you. But ultimately, somebody decides fight or flight. Who is that?
I thought that was a mind.
No. Because if mind is doing that, that means that preparation, why it prepares for not only one thing, and it prepares for both the options.
It makes a decision based on analysis.
Okay. A small child, it doesn't know that the milk it is drinking is hot, so it touches it. So after touching, what it feels is recorded in the mind. So that child is not going to touch hot cup then onwards. So mind is deciding. But that is not bhaya, right? When you are in the state of bhaya, you haven't experienced it yet. That bhaya is going to create flight or fight response. Now, who decides that? Mind does not have any memory. So if without any memory, what it does is governed by what? We need to understand that. Maybe In similar situations, 5-10 times, the mind will take over and will decide how to do or what to do. But before that, when it is unprepared, who makes that decision? So we need to find that, who makes that decision. Because as soon as mind records that, it is going to create impression. And Atma says, okay, you know what to do, I am out of the picture.
Atma is always out of the picture.
But when the mind doesn't know what to do, then Atma gives prerana. Okay, do this.
So, okay. So it is getting involved there.
It is prerana, it is bhav. And where that bhav is coming out, it depends upon the cover we have, Maya, Trigunatmik Maya. So again, Atma is not doing anything, call it Jiva, because Jiva is covered with Maya. So that Maya, depending upon the combination of 3 gunas, the Atma wants to do experience or observer. So its job is to experience. Now that Maya is going to create that Valarna. It is called Valarna or Bhava. So that Bhava is prerana to the mind. And that mind then acts. So we can say for simplicity that it is coming from Atma. But as you said, Atma is inert, it doesn't do anything. Then where does that come from? Because it is coming from Jiva. Jiva is covered with Trigunatmik Maya. If somebody is Satvik, then he might choose to run away. If somebody is Rajasik, he might choose to fight. Similarly. And if it is Tamsik, then somebody might want to kill and do the act. So it's again the combination of our Trigunatmik Maya that we have. And everybody is different, because what kind of combination we have, we don't know.
So that is what sort of controls. And the observer is.
You can say yes. Yes.
Observer is different. And
Observer is beyond that, even beyond that, right?
So then how to live properly? We try to live based upon, okay, do the right thing or
Right.
take corrective action when we are slipping.
Right.
So then we just rely on the jiva with the.
Correct. That subconscious mind and what it is programmed for, it takes care of that. What is our job? We don't know our Atma. We don't have that observation, right? We don't feel our Atma. So what can we do? Mama Maya Duratyaya, right? That is what Sri Krishna is saying. So we cannot cross that boundary. But then he says, okay, surrender to me. I'll take care of it. And that's why all these practices. See, when you read Upanishad, they stress on Gnana, knowledge. That is more than other actions. The other actions are Kriya, Karma and Bhakti. Kriya, in some of the Upanishads, they talk about Kriya also. But their major focus is knowledge, Gnana of Brahma. And that's why I think it is important to read all these in the context of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is summary or collection of very important aspects of all these Upanishads and Vedas, even Vedas.
But yeah, there it does differentiate between Atma and others, but they don't get to this level where, the sheet, the covering.
Correct.
When he says, "We Sitapagna, don't do this, don't be like that," but who is the, and like when you say be brave, who should be brave? Right?
Correct.
It's not the Atma, it's not the mind, it's they don't get into that level. It's just a thing about one entity.
Yes.
Upadesha for one entity.
And that's why this is the order in which we should study Shastras. First, Ramayana, Mahabharata, that is our Itihas, right? So study those, because these are stories that we can easily understand. Next level is Puranas. Read any 1 or 2 Puranas. Some are very thick, so it's very long. So read Puranas. That will take you to the next step. Because let's say Devi Bhagavad, some 900 plus pages, 18,000 plus shlokas. Again, stories, itihasa and some other stories, metaphors. But out of those 18,000 shlokas, some 1,000 shlokas are very profound knowledge. The same knowledge you find in Upanishads. So after Puranas, go to Upanishad. And after studying Upanishads, go back to Bhagavad Gita.
So after Purana, Gita, right? After Purana, when is Gita?
After Purana, read Upanishads. And see, you can keep studying Bhagavad Gita anytime. But in this order, after studying Upanishads, if you go back to Bhagavad Gita, many doubts are cleared. Bhagavad Gita is kind of summary of all these Upanishads, but such a way that we can weave a common thread. Upanishads, they are just knowledge. They just talk about that. But that knowledge, see, Bhagavad Gita talks about Atma and Jiva and Maya and all that. But what happens within Maya? What happens within Atma? How many divisions? Those are the answers in Upanishads. What is Parbrahma and what is Brahma and what is Atma? What are the distinctions? That we see in the Upanishads. So this is the knowledge of Brahma. This is Gnan Marg, purely Gnan Marg. So this is like going one level deeper. But again, take one step backward, go up, again study Bhagavad Gita. So we can understand what is being told here. And then we can go to Vedas. Because if you start with Vedas, say Rig Veda, you'll feel okay, they are just repeating one thing over and over in all the 10 mandalas, 10,000 plus shlokas, mantras, you would say. But they are repeating the same things with different gods, Rudra, Ashwini Kumar, Tvashtra, Savitru, Vishnu. And again, rituals. Again, one Rishi following these rituals, this sukta. Some other Rishi, again talking about the same thing. Slight different chandas, slight different words. Why they are doing that? And what are they talking about? The first hand interpretation is they are just talking about Homa, Yagna. But is it true? So you need to go now one step back and look at Upanishads. So going in the order and just step backward. So if we follow this order, then we can understand what is happening, what they are trying to say. And that's why the modern teachers, many acharyas and gurus, they always talk about, okay, don't read shastras. Just do this and do bhakti and you are done. That is one way. But what we are missing there is gnana. We do not study Upanishads. So we miss out on that part big time. We follow bhakti. We follow karma. Maybe it's up to some extent kriya. But there is no gnana anywhere. They don't talk about it at all.
Sort of blind following.
Blind following, yeah, blind following, right. So that's why it is important to study Upanishads. And then it unlocks the true meaning behind the Vedas. First-hand experience is, it's talking about all the elements in the nature. It's talking about various gods repetitively. But why and how is very important. And that notion or that thing can be kind of woven into Upanishads. Why they are talking about this. And everybody must read at least one Veda, is what the common belief is. That at least we must study one Veda. And if possible in lifetime, study more, but at least one Veda. And easiest one is Sama Veda. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, Vedanam Sam Vedoham, right? So it's just songs. You can sing. and it's very small compared to other Vedas and easy to understand because all the mantras taken from Rig Veda and put into one book. So
is knowledge of Sanskrit, not knowing Sanskrit going to hold you back?
No. That is the beauty. The Purva Bhumika or beginning of the Vedas, it is clearly written. Even though you don't know Sanskrit, even though you don't have any understanding of any of the words, what is happening here, what they are talking about, just keep reading. Once you finish, that experience, that knowledge comes automatically.
But keep reading, meaning keep reading the Sanskrit phrases.
Keep reading, yes.
Even though
you don't understand.
Not the translation, but Sanskrit only.
Original Sanskrit. Why they say that? Because they have written all the mantras such a way that they are in particular chanda. Chanda is important because chanda invokes certain bhava. So let's say I am doing Gayatri mantra. So Gayatri mantra is for sun. So when I keep chanting, even without knowing its meaning, that bhava of sun, Savitru, is created in our mind because of that chanda. And that's why it is in a particular chanda. Then comes Rushi. Every mantra has a Rushi. Why Rushi? Because Rushi is the one who wove that bhava who locked that bhava into those words. So we must know the Rushi behind every mantra. And then comes Devata. That bhava, who is that bhava for? Sun, Rudra, Vishnu, who is that? So if you know these three things, Deva, Rushi and Chanda of a particular mantra, and then read the mantra. And that's how, if you find any of the Vedas, they always start with who is the Rushi of this Sukta, what is the Chanda of this, and what is the Devata. So they write that first, and then all the mantras.
But what about the actual meaning for someone who won't know Sanskrit?
That's fine. It's up to you. Whether you want to understand, you can do that, and it is available in all the languages. I usually read in Gujarati because English, many of the things are lost. Gujarati is close to Sanskrit, so I prefer to read in Gujarati along with the original Sanskrit. You might prefer maybe Telugu, your language, Kannada, right? So because Kannada is close to you, and it is close to Sanskrit, because English is very distant, so it is better to get that translation. But keep reading. You'll know the meaning behind that.
I mean the like you said, the bhava that you mentioned,
right?
Because of the chandas, I can feel that because of Vishnu Sahasranama, I feel that.
Right.
It does, even though so many times I don't know the
exactly.
I feel good.
Right.
Just have to, even when it goes through my mind, I feel good,
right.
Even if I don't utter it.
Definitely. Let's take an example. Vishnu Sahasranama, right? And then Lalita Sahasranama. If you read without meaning, both, then they create different bhavas in you. You can experience. Read Vishnu Sahasranama one day, next day Lalita Sahasranama, and see the difference. Now who creates that bhava? In our mind, those letters, those sounds, they create that bhava. But who is experiencing that bhava? Just go beyond.
So one takeaway for today is just try to, at least one simple step for the observer thing is, try to observe what's happening, like
right.
You are away from your
correct,
say body for the sake of.
And simple thing is, let's start with shower, right? We do that for the first thing. First thing in the morning we do that. So why not start with that, or brush your teeth, and be aware what you are doing.
So be aware of the feeling, but be aware of it not like you are feeling it, but as if
you are kind of watching a movie. You are watching a movie.
Okay.
Right. So I think we should stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi.
Thank you.
Yes.